What's up, everyone, and welcome back for another week of NFL predictions. Did not have a great first week. Week one is usually always kind of a weird week anyway. I think I went like 6-10 or 7-9 or something like that. A couple weird picks that I would have had, but didn't work out quite the way that they probably should have. But we are here with a new slate of game picks, and this time I'm going to throw in the spreads too. So if I think a team is going to cover the spread, I'll read the line and then I'll say what I think, or if I think the team is going to cover the spread. So first, you got this Thursday night game, and one I will definitely be tuning into, which is a surprise because usually the Thursday night games are really bad. New York Jets at Buffalo. I'm going to take the Jets in this one. They really should have won week one. They kind of blew it at the end. A little bit of a meltdown. Not the greatest defensive performance. I'm not going to completely blame Darrelle Revis. He does deserve some blame for what happened. A.J. Green is an excellent receiver, though. And really, over-the-top safety help was just non-existent. And it's not completely Darrelle Revis' fault what happened to him last week. I still put a little bit of the blame on him. Buffalo's a total mess. The fact that they couldn't even make the game with Baltimore a contest last week was just pitiful. And I think that Rex Ryan is going to be fired pretty quickly here. So that game I had the game right now has the Jets favored at -1.5. I don't think Buffalo's going to cover. I think that this game is going to be a 4 or 5 point game at the very least, if not by a whole touchdown. So let's move on. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. I'm taking Pittsburgh in this game. The line is at 3. I think the Bengals will probably make it a pretty interesting game, so I would take the points right there. I think that the Bengals are going to win, or if the Bengals lose, it'll only be a field goal game. It'll probably come down to the last 5 minutes of the game. So Baltimore at Cleveland. Cleveland's a disaster. Baltimore actually didn't look that bad in their win over Buffalo. It was an ugly game, but those are the kind of games it always seems like they win. They're favored by 6. I don't think Cleveland covers. New England hosting Miami. Miami looked a lot better than I think a lot of people expected last week, but you got to remember, and a lot of people didn't take this into consideration, Seattle usually starts the season incredibly slow. They only had a start better than 500 through 6 games of the season once, and that was the year that they won the Super Bowl. They started out 11-1 that year. But other than that, they've been, I think, 4-4, 3-3, and I think last year they were actually like 4-5. I had a tweet about it somewhere, but I don't have time to pull it up right now. But I think the Dolphins did look pretty good, but I'm still going to take New England right here. They looked incredible last week. I don't think the Dolphins will cover either. New England's favored by 6.5. I think it'll be at least 1 touchdown game. Houston hosting Kansas City. Houston got a big week 1 win. I thought they were one of those teams that was kind of prone to a weird week 1. Kansas City got a kind of fluky win. San Diego just kind of fell apart after Keenan Allen got injured last week. And Kansas City isn't the greatest road team. Houston's only favored by 2.5. I could definitely see Kansas City covering, but I do think it'll be. Actually, I think Kansas City will cover. I think it'll be a 1 or 2 point game. I think it'll be some weird score. Either one, because there were a lot of 1 point games last week, but I think it'll be very, very close. I don't think there's much difference between these two teams in terms of if Houston has home field. Jacksonville, San Diego. San Diego, I think, they're just dead in the water. They do have some. They have some talent. They look pretty solid defensively until the very end of that game. Poor coaching. I think Jacksonville is feeling themselves after the first week. They really probably should have won against Green Bay. I thought that was one of the best games of the last week. A lot of the games were very good, but I'd put Jacksonville, Green Bay, Oakland, and New Orleans were probably 2 of the best games. The Arizona, New England, Jets, Cincy was really good. There were several very good games last week. Giants, Dallas too was really good. Jacksonville, Green Bay was surprisingly one of the better games. I thought that would be a very lopsided game, and Green Bay did come out on top, but Jacksonville looked very good for most of that game. I think they'll top San Diego in this one. The line as it stands right now, San Diego is favored by 3, and obviously I have Jacksonville winning that game, so I think they'll cover. If not, I do think it will be just a 3 point game. I think that's a good line for that. Denver hosting Indy. Indy looked disastrous last week. They still almost won, but they look like a disaster. Their coaching is terrible. They have so many holes, and against a team as good as Denver, I don't think that they really stand a chance. That is the late game, and I'm going to pick Denver for this, and I don't think the Colts cover. Line is 6. I think it's at least a 7 point game. So for our AFC versus NFC games, you got Tennessee at Detroit. Detroit looked very good last week. They did kind of melt down for a little bit, but Matthew Stafford looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the league now that he does have a new offensive coordinator. He's only thrown 2 picks since Jim Bob Cooter became the offensive coordinator. They're favored by 6. I think Tennessee has a shot to cover here, but I do think it will be a 1-touchdown game in the end. I am going with Detroit on that one. Our other AFC NFC game is going to be Oakland hosting Atlanta. Atlanta has a lot of potential to fall apart after that week 1 loss. It was a very tough loss because they had a chance to come down and win the game at the end, and they just completely blew it. Oakland got a key win last week, like one of those milestone victories. They beat a very good team when they were down by multiple scores on the road, and they did it on I don't want to say a fluky play, but I don't question the decision to go for 2, but it's definitely wasn't a popular decision prior to. And if it wasn't successful, then if they hadn't converted on the 2-point conversion, then we would be having a very different conversation right now. I think the only reason that it's getting as much praise as it is because it worked out. So Oakland is favored by 4.5. I think this is going to be a blowout game, honestly. I think it'll be at least 2 touchdowns. It might not, though. Oakland might play down to the competition. Pittsburgh tends to have that problem, but I think Oakland comes out on top in the end here. Not a lot of chance to cover, I don't think. Washington hosting Dallas. Washington a really fluky week 1. I'm not a person who really cares as much about the Josh Norman wasn't guarding Antonio Brown stuff. He burned Bashaud Breeland, but he's going to burn anyone he plays. Antonio Brown is the best receiver I've ever seen. He's definitely the best receiver in the NFL right now. I think he would have burned Norman even if he covered him. I think he would have burned Richard Sherman. I think he would have burned name any good corner. I think Antonio Brown could have killed him in any game. But I'm not. I think that it's more important about their system. And I think the way they played Josh Norman fits into how they want to use him anyway. So I think that it's an okay. I don't really have a problem with them not using him. Dallas had a pretty good showing, but I think that they don't really have what it takes to win these close games. I don't know with Dak Prescott if they're going to have a shot to, like with the Giants game. I know it wasn't his fault that they lost, but they're kind of it seems like they're just kind of be this hard luck team like they kind of were last year. I think Washington's going to come out on top in this one, but I could definitely see Dallas pulling out a close one. The line's only 2.5. I would take it if it was 3.5 or 3, but I think that it will be a field goal at least game. Giants hosting the Saints. This was one of the best games to watch last year. Not if you like defense, but if you really like offense and close games, then this was one of the best games of last year. A shootout. I believe New Orleans came out on top 52-49. Giants have a little bit better of a defense this year. At least their defensive line is much improved from last year, and I think if they can force pressure, it's going to make this a different game. They're favored by 4.5. I think the Saints are going to cover, but I do think the Giants are going to win. I think it'll come down to a 3-point game once again. I don't really have much else to say about that. The Carolina Panthers host the San Francisco 49ers. I know San Francisco got a big win in week 1, 28-0 over the Rams, but the Rams might be the worst team in the league. If you watched that game, I feel sorry for you. I watched the condensed version of it on NFL Game Pass because I was not interrupting the plans that I had already made to watch a game such as that. So I did watch it later on. It was very brutal, and I feel sorry for anybody who sat through that catastrophe. Carolina's favored by 13.5. I don't think San Francisco has a chance. I think this is a blowout. I think Carolina is really irritated after that week 1. They should have won, but Seattle at LA. In past years, I would have taken LA, the Rams, in this game, but they look terrible. Seattle didn't look all that great, but there's no way that I don't think there's any way that this is a game that you've seen in the past, because at least in the past when LA beat Seattle, well, I guess when St. Louis beat Seattle, when the Rams beat Seattle, they had competent quarterbacks, and Case Keenum is not even on that level. Nick Foles and Sam Bradford are better. Even Sean Hill, I think he started for them 1 year. I think, yeah. Sean Hill was on their team 1 year, but then they hosted, and they beaten Seattle, I think at least once in the last 2 years, each of the last 2 years. But this is a game in the past I would have taken LA, but I'm going to take Seattle in this one. Big win in week 1. They proved that they could win. And they do usually get off to slow starts, so I could totally see this going in the other direction. They're favored by 3.5. I might take the line on this one. I think that the Rams have a chance to cover. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take the points right there. I think Seattle is not going to have the greatest game. I think it's going to be a close one like last week. So Arizona hosting Tampa Bay. Arizona had a really fluky loss. Tampa Bay had a really fluky win. Well, it's not that. Yeah, Arizona had two of the best games of the week ended on missed field goals that were due to some stupid mistake, and it really just ruined the game experience, because you came away thinking that the wrong team won both of those games. So, like, Arizona was on a botched snap that they missed the field goal, and Carolina, they made the field goal, but then they said that the Broncos had called a timeout, which I think was I watched that play at least 5 times, and I didn't think that they called the timeout in time. That's just me. But Arizona, I think, wins against Tampa Bay. I think that Jameis has a rough day after he's really got some confidence going. But I think it's going to be a rough year for Tampa Bay. I think they're going to be a pretty good team, but I think it's going to be very up and down. Arizona, I'm going to take this one on. Line 6.5, I'm not taking that. I think the Arizona wins by at least 10. Green Bay at Minnesota. Minnesota looked really good last week. Defense looks incredible. Sam Bradford is starting for this one. I don't really know if he's going to make much of a difference from Shaun Hill, although Shaun Hill did not look very good. The stats were okay in the end, but watching him every play, it was not very good. But Sam Bradford might be a marginal improvement, maybe a little bit better. He is pretty good. I think Green Bay comes out on top here. Their defense didn't look that great last week, but their offense definitely looks like it is getting back on track. And as the season goes, I think Jordy Nelson is going to improve. I think that they're truly trying to slowly work him back into the offense. Aaron Rodgers had a pretty good game. His stats weren't the greatest in the end, but watching him, he made some incredible throws. His receivers made some incredible plays. Finally, the Monday night game, the Sunday night game was Green Bay, Minnesota. I took Green Bay, and the line is 2. I don't think Minnesota covers. I think it's at least 3-point, probably touchdown game. Philadelphia at Chicago. I'm taking Philadelphia in this one. Chicago had a really terrible second half, honestly, last week. They did not score any points, and Philadelphia had a pretty big win against the Browns. I think they're going to win a few games this year. I kind of changed my assessment from the last episode of these predictions. I think that Philadelphia is not a terrible team if Carson Wentz is not a terrible quarterback. And there's really, a quarterback isn't ever great as a rookie. Some are. But really, for the majority, they're not great as a rookie, but they can show that they're not bad. And Carson Wentz looked pretty good the other day. So I'm taking Philadelphia in this one. Line is Chicago at 3. I think that Philadelphia wins, so obviously they would cover that. And if they don't win, it will be a 3-point game. So that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this week is a little bit better than last week in terms of results for these predictions, but I went with a little bit more of the safe picks this week because there were a few games that I had trouble deciding on that were pretty close teams in talent level. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you next week, and we will make our week 3 predictions. So see you next time. Hopefully this week works out better than last. See you next time.